by Samuel's court poet, and quite possibly boyfriend, Salomon ibn Gabirol.
Whoa! Whoa! Yeah.
September 7th.
Another golden age, boys.
The Abbasids have held sway over the caliphate, and have consolidated their claim by hunting down and killing all remaining heirs to the Umayyad dynasty, except for one. Deep in the breakaway states of the Maghreb, the last surviving Umayyad, Abd al-Rahman ibn Muawiyah, has eluded the assassin's blade. After gaining the support of his family's exiled bannermen, he has set his sights on the Abbasids' last remaining western province, Al-Andalus. Within a year, the Umayyad line will rise again in Europe, and under their protection, the Jews of the West will begin a golden age, unseen since the days of the Temple. For its entire existence as a sovereign state, Visigothic Spain had been a complete basket case. Civil war had long been normalized as a method of royal succession, agriculture had collapsed due to the constant fighting, and the kingdom had become politically isolated from the rest of Europe as one of the last states to abandon the Arian Church. Visigothic policies towards their Jewish subjects, who had lived in Spain since at least the 1st century, varied wildly but were almost invariably negative, ranging from forced conversion to mass enslavement. After switching to Catholicism, the Visigoths still antagonized their neighbors by taking advantage of a new alliance with the Roman Empire to liberate the Roman city of Ceuta. So in 710, the Count of Ceuta defected to the Umayyad Caliphate and lobbied General Tariq ibn Ziyad to depose the Visigoths once and for all by invading Spain. For this reason, the vast majority of Muslim conquerors of Spain were Afro-Romans, not Arabs, further distancing the
Afro-Roman. Oh, yeah, because every time I hear Afro, I think of Sub-Saharan Africa, but North Africa is obviously a part of Africa too.
Culture of their new province from
I was thinking of like Black Romans. Shit. Black Romans. Have you ever had any like Black Romans before? Have we? I don't think I've ever heard of any Black Romans. Shit. I mean, we've heard of a Black Japanese samurai, but any no, I don't. The Romans fought a lot of black people too. That's quite funny.
The rest of the caliphate. Almost all of Spain had fallen to the Umayyads by 718, helped in no small part by the willingness of Spanish nobles to accept the peace and stability offered by Muslim hegemony. This made Muslim Spain much more feudal in character than the rest of the caliphate. Ultimately, these cultural and political differences insulated the province from the upheavals of the Abbasid Revolution and Berber revolts, and fostered a decentralized order which would eventually make it the wealthiest and freest polity in Europe. This is the environment into which Abd al-Rahman I arrived in 755, easily overthrowing the Abbasid governor and proclaiming himself emir, establishing his capital in the ever more grand city of Cordoba. The Muslim conquest was a sea change for Iberia's Jews. Suddenly, they had more political and economic freedom than most Europeans. It's true that this freedom was
also someone I pointed this out, and someone also expanded on this in one of my recent comments. You said that because I said that I never really like told anyone this, but I did went on another website and let my DNA let my DNA results get taken, and they basically said the same thing as my like ancestry results, but they said that I was 1.2% Arab Egyptian, Arab Middle Eastern, but they specifically said Egyptian. Like they traced my DNA to Egypt, but they said that it was Arab Middle Eastern DNA, but they traced it to Egypt. Someone said that because I have Mediterranean DNA, because I have like Hispanic DNA as well. They said that due to that, I have Mediterranean shit going on, so it's not really a shocker that I would have something like that 1.2% Arab Egyptian DNA as well. Um, I just think that it just makes sense. I mean, if literally half of my good chunk of my European DNA is from the Iberian Peninsula, um, I mean, it was under Muslim rule for such a long time, right? So, it really does make sense because, like, my skin tone, when I'm not tan as shit, it's a very interesting color. Like, it, it's like maybe I'll like put a picture for you to see or something. I'll put a picture so you can see what I'm talking about. Like what my skin tone doesn't look like when I'm like super tan. And it's like yeah, it's clear that I have like European DNA, but I always thought to myself, okay, maybe I have like something else going on that's causing that very interesting like skin tone to appear. I thought that it was Indian. I was thinking Indian because I looked at myself before. I was like, I look more Indian with the skin tone that's going on here. But maybe because I might have some Middle Eastern DNA that I don't really like know about. Keep in mind, guys, every single website has like different data. And remember when I did my ancestry DNA and I said that I didn't really follow the steps properly, but I spent $100 on it. So I didn't really want to go through all that whole hell again of getting another kit, and I just sent it in. Then I went on another website just to see if they would say something different. They said the same thing pretty much, except for the freaking Arab, Middle Eastern, Egyptian DNA. I was like, oh wow. So yeah, that did basically confirm my theory that every website does have different readings of your DNA. So yeah, but yeah, I always thought to myself, maybe I have something else going on here, causing that very interesting skin tone. No, you can be black and you can have lighter skin tone without any type of, other DNA. That's still possible. But with what you saw there, yeah, it's kind of obvious I have something else going on in my DNA.
It's technically due to the Muslim practice of toleration for people of the book, but the degree to which Jewish freedom could be wielded in Cordoba was in part because power in the emirate was much more decentralized than in other Muslim-ruled lands. From the very beginning of Islamic rule in the Iberian Peninsula, Christian lords had been allowed to keep their power. Now, under the independent emirate, both Christians and Jews were afforded many of the same opportunities for advancement as Muslims, more even than in the Abbasid Caliphate, in order to win their loyalty. In most cases of European history, this degree of decentralization actually made it much harder for nations to accrue wealth and power. But the Visigoths had so wrecked the peninsula in the preceding centuries that there was nowhere to go but up. For most of its existence, Cordoba was the most politically stable country in Europe. The new Umayyad rulers were careful not to engage in the same type of ethnic gatekeeping as their ancestors in Damascus, which went a long way towards preventing political intrigue. There were a few local revolts, but those were local revolts, not full-blown civil wars. There were also a couple of Viking raids, but pretty quickly the Danes got tired, settled in the emirate, converted to Islam, and gave the world manchego cheese. Peace, trade networks
I didn't know the Vikings went all the way there.
The risk of famine, which caused population growth, which caused the economy to boom for centuries, while the rest of the continent, and indeed the rest of the Muslim world, only became more entrenched in civil strife. And with the breakups of the Frankish Empire, the Abbasid Caliphate, and China's Tang Dynasty, they were also arguably the most powerful country in the world, which had finally compelled neighboring Christian states to open diplomatic relations. One product of that diplomacy was the Emir Abd al-Rahman III, a grandson of both the previous emir and a princess of Navarre. In fact, he was of mostly European ancestry, and dyed his naturally blonde hair black, not unlike former Giants relief pitcher Brian Wilson. By the time of Abd al-Rahman's inauguration in 912, the Abbasid Caliphate had collapsed in all but name, with Egypt and Syria passing between a succession of Turkish mercenaries and the actual caliph reduced to controlling just Iraq. Where have I heard that before? 3 years earlier, the
Yo, Yo, is that a joke? Is that what I think that joke was supposed to mean? Was that a joke to ISIS? That group? Yo, if that joke is a reference to that, that is a god tier. That would be god tier, bro.
11th Shia Imam in North Africa had declared himself the rightful caliph, despite not controlling the holy cities of Mecca or Medina. This changed things. Up to this point, even though they had been enemies for over a century, the emirs of Cordoba had at least nominally still pledged allegiance to the caliph in Baghdad. That ended in 929, when, in recognition of his state's unchallenged power, Abd al-Rahman declared himself Caliph of Cordoba. In 949, Abd al-Rahman entered an alliance with the Roman Empire against the Abbasids. And if that sounds weird, keep in mind that the Abbasids had already been allied with the French for over a century by this point. As a token of their friendship, the Roman delegation presented Abd al-Rahman with a copy of Dioscorides on Medical Material, a 1st century treatise on herbal medicine. Unfortunately, it was in Greek, so for the next several months, Abd al-Rahman gave the job of republishing the book in Arabic to his personal physician, a Jew named Hasdai ibn Shaprut.
Demonetized.
Hasdai didn't actually speak Greek. The actual job of translating was done by others.
Demonetized.
The Caliph trusted Hasdai to give the translation a literary flair worthy of their new Roman alliance. He did, and with his newfound celebrity, Hasdai made a decision that would transform Cordoba into the new center of Jewish thought. At this time, both Sa'adia Gaon and the exilarch David ben Zakkai had recently died, but the power struggle between them had lived on. With the exilarch now unwilling to fund the yeshivot, the Gaon of Sura sent a rabbi named Moshe ben Hanoch to collect donations from the Jews of Italy. Instead, Moshe was captured at sea by the Cordoban navy, brought to Abd al-Rahman's court, and taken in by Hasdai. Recognizing the embarrassing state of affairs in the east, and possibly inspired by Abd al-Rahman's declaration of the caliphate, Hasdai gave Moshe the funds to establish his own yeshiva in Cordoba, fully independent from the jurisprudence of the Gaonim. Jewish communities in other countries soon followed Cordoba's lead, and in less than a decade, the power of Sura and Pumbedita was broken. Hasdai did not leave the spotlight for long. In 953, King Otto I of East Francia, soon to become the Holy Roman Empire, sent an embassy under brother Jean de Gors to end Andalusian pirate attacks on Italy and Provence from their enclave at Fraxinetum. Rahman worried that Jean's diplomatic credentials might contain insulting statements about the Prophet Muhammad, which carried a death sentence which nobody wanted. Instead, he sent Hasdai to review his papers, which were indeed insulting towards Muhammad. Hasdai privately advised Jean to send for new papers before meeting Abd al-Rahman, thus saving Jean's life and preventing a massive European war. If you're wondering how this worked out, Abd al-Rahman maintained that he had no control over the pirates of Fraxinetum, but wouldn't intervene to stop the Christian powers from capturing the city by force, which they did, but it ended up taking 20 years. So nothing really changed, but both sides felt that the negotiations had been a complete success. Abd al-Rahman solidified relations by establishing a Cordoban embassy in Germany, and in 956 he rewarded Hasdai by appointing him as foreign minister. To reiterate, a Jewish man was entrusted as the chief diplomat of the most powerful country on earth. In 3,000 years of Jewish history, this has only happened one other time. Around this time, 2 Jewish merchants accompanying an embassy from Croatia informed Hasdai of a Jewish kingdom in the east, the Khazar Khaganate. So captured was Hasdai by the idea of such a place that he wrote a long and florid letter to its...
I gotta freaking react to this, bro. Like I have it there in my list, bro. People was like, yo, go react to the Khazar Khaganate. But the video's like a freaking hour long, bruh. These long videos, I swear. I won't have time for this stuff, you know.
Ruler Yosef. Unfortunately, the letter he got back was probably a forgery, and the degree to which the Khazar leadership had adopted Judaism is in doubt. But Hasdai's greatest triumph came in 958. That year, he secured an alliance between Cordoba and Navarre to reinstate Abd al-Rahman's cousin Sancho I as king of Leon. The intervention was successful, And as Leon held overlordship over the rest of the Christian north, Cordoba's fight to maintain independence was over. Hasdai ibn Shaprut had achieved peace in Iberia. However, by declaring himself as caliph, Abd al-Rahman III had placed a target on the backs of his successors. I'm not going to go into the exact details because listening to them is very bad for you. But to keep things as simple as possible, in 976, succession to the caliphate passed to an 11-year-old, leading his regent to seize power and start his own dynasty of de facto rulers. That regent's son then launched a coup attempt to be designated as heir to the caliphate. This breach of tradition enabled various branches of the Umayyad family to rally popular support, bolstered by huge numbers of foreign mercenaries who knew nothing of the local culture and in most cases were actively hostile toward it. Fun. And here to talk about what happened next is YouTube's preeminent Muslim historian, Hikma History.
Between 1009 and 1013, Cordoba was sacked 3 times, the last time resulting in the slaughter of 2,000 of the city's Jews. What had been the largest and wealthiest city in the world 4 years earlier was now depopulated, impoverished, and mostly in ruins. But Cordoba's downfall proved a new beginning for many other cities. By 1030, the Khilafah of Cordoba had collapsed into a vast network of city-states, or taifas, and with experienced administrators now in high demand all over the place, Cordoba's Jews brought new life to former backwaters like Toledo, Zaragoza, Malaga, Almeria, Cadiz, and Granada. And it is in the last of these cities where one Jew would rise higher than even Hasdai ibn Shaprut, the man known as Samuel ibn Naghrela. If you want to know more about him and the important role he played in creating the masterpiece that we now know as the Alhambra, check out the video that I did on the history of the Alhambra as part of this collaboration.
Thanks. And of course, be sure to check out Hikma History's excellent channel.
I've already reacted to that. I've actually reacted to that. Very good. Very excellent. Go check out my reaction to that. It's very excellent.
In 1013, a 20-year-old yeshiva student named Samuel ibn Naghrela fled with his family to Malaga, then on his own to Granada. Samuel had been one of the top students of Cordoba's famous yeshiva, but it was actually his day job as a spice seller that would put him on the path to greatness. Samuel's shop was next to the palace of the Grand Vizier Al-Arif. In his spare time, Samuel wrote poetry, and upon discovering this, a woman in Al-Arif's harem, a recent arrival from Morocco who was illiterate, secretly began using Samuel to write official correspondence to the vizier. Eventually, King Habus found out what was going on, but he was so impressed by Samuel's writing that he brought him into the court, first as a tax collector, then as secretary to Al-Arif. In 1027, Habus appointed Samuel as Nagid, or chief rabbi of Granada's 5,000-strong Jewish community. When Habus died in 1038, the court threatened to break into civil war between his 2 sons, but it was Samuel who maneuvered the younger son Badis to the throne. In exchange, Badis made Samuel his Grand Vizier, an equivalent position to Prime Minister. The significance of this shouldn't be overlooked. Excluding absolute rulers, Samuel was the first Jewish head of government of a non-Jewish state in history. At the same time, Samuel was installed as chief of staff of the Granadan army, and despite his lack of military experience, he led his soldiers to victory again and again against Almeria and Cordoba, often writing poetry on the battlefield. My friend, for me in my straits, the rock rose up. Therefore I offer these praises, my poem to the Lord. He recognized fear of Yadir in my heart and erased it. So my song is sung to the healer. He ravaged my enemies with pain, easing my own. Someone objected, who are you to pay homage? I am, I answered, the David of my age.
So, like, who are these people who were Hebrews? Because, like, after the Hebrews got expelled, the Romans expelled the Hebrews. Didn't they, like, kind of just go extinct? Right? They all kind of just, like, dispersed. Because Hebrews are like Canaanites. That's interesting actually. Wait. Hebrews are Canaanites, and when the Romans expelled them, like that's where they kind of just ceased, right? If I'm not mistaken, right? So, wouldn't their like Canaanite DNA still be like passed down, unless it just like they just interbred so much and it just wasn't enough like pure Hebrew Canaanites to breed with, that the DNA itself just died out too, right? So then who are these people who are claiming to be like Jews then, right? Who are they? Because it is a very known fact. Yes, the Romans expelled the Jews, and this caused the Jews, like the actual ancient Jews, to kind of just cease. Literally just cease, right? To the point where the Hebrew language is extinct. Officially classed as extinct. The language that is spoken now today is not. It's just a reconstructed version of it. It's not the authentic Hebrew. So I'm like confused. Someone can ask in the comments.
Samuel's victory over Cordoba resulted in the founding of Eli Hoshana, later corrupted to Luthena, the first majority Jewish city in Europe and the new home of the world's foremost yeshiva. However,
Very
Samuel's greatest achievement
interesting.
is one which continued far beyond his own lifetime. Outside of Granada sat the ruins of what was known as the Red Fortress, or Alhambra. Built on the foundations of a Roman fort to combat one of the 9th century rebellions, it had long been abandoned. But having brought Granada to military glory, Samuel ibn Nagrela set about rebuilding it, not only as a military fortification, but as a palace fit for both the king and for himself. Almost all of the Alhambra today was built after Samuel's time. But one piece, the Fountain of Lions, has survived, described in its own time by Samuel's court poet and quite possibly boyfriend, Salomon ibn Gabirol.
Whoa! 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 That boyfriend? Wait. He's a Jew and he has a boyfriend? Whoa. Whoa. If you believe in the Abrahamic God, that's a big no-no. Well, I was not prepared for that.
Ibn Gabirol, not Evin Gvirol. When Samuel died in 1055, his son Jose was chosen.
That was
to
pretty
succeed
hilarious.
him
I just didn't have time to like laugh at
I'm
it.
using chosen lightly. Jose was only 21 years old. He had no experience living among common people and had entered into a dynastic marriage to the daughter of the Gaon of Kairouan. He did succeed in conquering Malaga in 1057, but his distinctly kingly behavior began to alienate the same recent arrivals from Morocco who had elevated his father, people whose more orthodox beliefs would never accept explicit Jewish rule. In 1066, the poet Abu Ishaq wrote a condemnation of Granada's Jews. Do not consider it a breach of faith to kill them. The breach of faith would be to let them carry on. They have violated our covenant with them. So how can you be held guilty against the violators? How can they have any pact when we are obscure and they are prominent? Now we are humble beside them as if we were wrong and they were right. For the rest of the year, rumors spread throughout the city that Jose planned to open the gates to Almeria, Granada's enemy, in exchange for making him king. It was just a rumor, but on the 30th of December, a mob stormed the Alhambra and crucified Jose. No Jew would serve as a national head of government again until the 17th century, and none in Europe until the 20th century. Over the following days, the the mob massacred around 1500 of Granada's Jewish community.
Bro, I already know that YouTube isn't gonna push out this video. I already know. I already know. I just
And subsequent invasion of the Almoravids from Morocco are generally regarded as the end of the Sephardic Golden Age. But there are some serious problems with this narrative. While we today often think simplistically of medieval Iberia as being divided between Christian and Muslim realms, with the Muslims acting as protectors to Jews, that was no longer the case by the late 11th century. When the Kingdom of Leon captured Toledo in 1085, the Jews living there were welcomed by their new rulers. A Christian, El Cid, became Emir of Valencia. And on top of everything, the majority of Spain's most famous Jewish figures hadn't even been born yet. Altogether, it was a high contrast to the terror then beginning to consume the rest of Europe and West Asia. A terror that would, for a time, bring the Islamic Golden Age crashing to an end, and would nearly exterminate the Jews of Palestine.
Yeah, this video is so demonetized, bro. So it's not even demonetized. It's like YouTube just isn't gonna just push. They're not gonna push this video out. I already know. Like, it is what it is. But if you want to try and help me to get this video be pushed out, you can like it. You know, you could drop some comments. Helps me get my video pushed out. But yeah, you know, subscribe if you're new. You like my reactions. You have more reactions like this, you could comment in the comments below. Yeah, you know, thank you for watching. Check out my channel membership, bro. It's only 99 cents a month, man. And goodbye, bro. It's gonna be in the pinned comments, all the perks that you get. All right.